What is up, it's a Figure Hunter, and today we're going to do a full and final review for the Amazfit GTR4. Now this is the latest edition from Amazfit, and it's sort of their top of the line watch, as it also relates to the GTS4, which looks sort of like an Apple Watch but a little bit different. And they have added a significant number of updates to this, which I think makes it a significantly worthwhile watch to consider at $199. I mean, $199. So I want you to think about that as I go through the list of features and as you see the watch. I just want you to remember this is $199, which in today's smartwatch world is actually super cheap. Mine came with $70 Amazfit earbuds. You can now get it, I think it comes free with, and this is all free, it comes free with like the, little baby version of their watch system, but basically it's 200 bucks plus something free on the side. So, a little bit bonkers, but first we got to see, is it worth $200? Is it worth $50? And I think you'll be surprised and happy to find out the answers to that. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing for more. We're going to look at three basic categories. Number one, the watch, just the basics, the overview, all the nitty gritty stuff, as well as the app. And then we're going to, in each of these categories, we're going to do a hands-on, and then I'm going to talk about what are the standout features that make it significant. Then we're going to look at the wellness features, hands-on standout features, and then the workout and training features. So watch, wellness, and workout. So with that, let's dive into the watch. All right, here he is, the Amazfit GTR4. You're going to see a lot of features about this that make it stand out. Just hands-on. Just FYI, I cut the tip of my finger off after having COVID, so my workout intensity for some of these workout tracking is going to be a little not as rigorous as it was in past weeks. But you can see, it's an all aluminum alloy metal casing, but in general, just to get an appreciation of how it looks as a watch, you can see just visually it's super sharp. Before we even talk about any of the specs and details, I like the accent point. This has got a spinning crown so that if you were to go into the apps, you can rotate up and down. It's got haptic feedback on the crown itself. Just really, really sharp looking watch. So in looking at the overall specs and details, it's 46 millimeters in diameter. It's actually 12.3 millimeters thick. Now that is actually pretty healthy thin. The Garmin 255, which is the smallest of the Forerunner series, is I think 14.5. So this is a 2 millimeters thinner than the Garmin 255. It's rated at 7 to 14 days of battery life. Now I leave always on display, always on. And they say with heavy usage, you're getting 7 days. I'm getting about 8.5. So I'm getting over a full week of full usage. I never check it. It gets all the notifications I could possibly turn on, and I'm doing at least one workout roughly every day. It's got the full set of sensors, and it actually has a barometer on there, which is actually kind of a big deal. These bands are 22 millimeters in thickness. Unfortunately, the screen, the glass, is a tempered glass, so you're not going to get the most rigorous, but I haven't created a nick in 3 weeks at all, or almost a month now. So it's got this new heart rate sensor. It's got some sort of fancy name to it, but it's got pulse ox tracking. It's got your overall heart rate sensor, but it's supposed to be 33% more information flowing through here. So approximately 33% more accurate, and I'm finding it to be considerably accurate. If it were me, because you want to be able to have this for workouts, I would pick up one of these Velcro bands that's a quick fit and just fits in there so that you can adjust where you're wearing it on your wrist. It actually only weighs 59 grams, which with the strap, and the watch itself only weighs 34 grams. That's super, super light. Huge feature, it has dual band GPS built in. Another significant feature, that's actually a gargantuan feature. Another significant feature is it's got a microphone and, let's see if we can just, it's got all sorts of different features to it. But it's got a microphone and a speaker. So you can take Bluetooth calls on it. And like you saw a second ago, it does have Alexa so that you can hold this down and it's going to automatically start connecting you to Alexa so that you could ask a question and it'll read back with your watch and with your phone to be able to give you the Alexa answers. So just superior set of features, and everything really just works, from the touchscreen to the buttons to everything just works really solidly. It's got this widget system which you can adjust what widgets you see. It always says just now. It's always got the most recent weather. Obviously, it's got it in Celsius, which is not where I am in the world, so that's a setting that needs to be adjusted. It's got music you can download into it, but it's just MP3, so I don't really consider that real music. You can access whatever parts of your widget information you would like to have. It's got this health snapshot. So this is just a basic summary, but the widgets are great. This is if you want to get the compass to work correctly, which we're not going to do that now. And then you got this summary page, which is always actually to the left, or you swipe to the right. You get all this information all in one little picture, one little page, to be able to see your snapshot. Super, super nice, as well as the morning update, that when you wake up every morning, it'll tell you the weather, how much battery life, what your sleep was like, what calendar events, and you can edit it for even more things. Here's how it looks on my 176 millimeter wrist. One thing I forgot to mention in the earlier section is you just swipe down, you have a quick list of different things, and you can fully edit this. I mean, so it's got this quick drop down where you can get to all sorts of things, like turning up the backlight. I have a problem with, like needing a lot of brightness, and I have not adjusted this from like the 50% range. So it's just been fantastic, but that's how it looks on my wrist. This is how it looks compared to the world's largest watch, the Enduro 2, 47 millimeters versus 51. This is how it's going to look next to a baby Apple Watch 1, which is 40 millimeters, so the smallest capacity. I think somebody that has a small wrist could absolutely pull off the GTR. This is how it looks in size next to the Polar Pacer. So this is the Polar Pacer, which I'm going to talk about in the summary as one of my favorite watches, and I wish it held a charge. Actually, this was powered down and had a good charge on it when it was powered down, but for some reason there's still a battery drain, because I just tried to turn it on and it's been like 6 weeks and it's dead. But you would be able to see like a huge difference in, there are your notes or your notifications, so you can see what the notifications look like. Really, really solid. Visually, it is stunning, especially relative to a transflective screen. So let's look quickly at the app. All right, so this is the basic app. So you're gonna get your activities up top, then your sleep. There's a sleep medley, which is basically like, it's gonna play music for a period of time based on, what your goals are. Your sleep breathing quality, your stress, blood oxygen. We're gonna look at some of these things when we go into the wellness section. The exercise piece, we'll look at the workout section. Then you have your heart rate across time. If you click into that, you get more detailed information, as well as in the bottom. In the middle there, you can see your resting heart rate, as well as your average, max, minimum. Those are your heart rate ranges. You can obviously see your heart rate across a longer period of time, or just a spectrum. Your steps, your calories. PAI is basically an estimate of how much exertion points you're getting. So the goal would be 100. So I capped out just because of the level of intensity, typical CrossFit or high intensity interval training workouts. And then the BMI and weight is just sort of a blind guess, because I just entered my information. So that's the basics. The other basics about the watch is where you go to set it up. You can obviously here you set up your goals, your route, friends, if you want to connect with people. I don't know how easy it is to connect to people here in the States, because it's mostly established overseas, this Amazfit is. So in all of these settings, I'm not going to go into all the details of the settings, but it really is fully functioning. The shortcuts, so the shortcut cards are what you call your widgets, so you can change what you're going to see from a huge list of other pieces. Plus, all the settings are very rich. Everything just works really well. One thing I've really loved is they continue to update it, and whenever you get an update, it says, hey, you need to update it. And it's simple and seamless and flawless, and takes 3 or 4 minutes on a $200 watch, when other major manufacturers, it's a more arduous process to update the watch. So everything works really fantastically. You can't turn every notification in the whole world on, but you do get a lot of notifications you can turn on. It has a great wealth of watch faces, and the watch faces are really nice just out of the box from the website itself. I feel like there are a number of watch faces that I really like, and these are the ones that I've really found to be worthwhile. So just a lot of cool analog, a couple of digital watch faces like that large watch face. But I like a lot of the diver looking watch faces. I feel like it fits because it's more of a, minimized sort of a sleek watch for business wear. And everything just works really well. So that's the basic. Now, obviously it's feature rich, but the bottom line of the standout features is that it's super light at only 34 grams for the watch itself. I love that it comes with this new morning update, which gives you a summary of the things that happened last night and the things yet to come for today. Bonkers that it is dual band GPS. It is actually a cool little feature that it has a speaker and a microphone built into it, so you can take your Bluetooth calls from it. And the Alexa app, that does work. And everything about this, one of the things that seems to be most crazy about this, it's got a barometer, which is not an always available feature set. It has a huge long battery life, but the other thing that I have really grown to appreciate, although it is a simple platform and simple watch setup, everything just works. So the setup process just works, the widgets just work, the apps just work, and the updates just work. It really is relatively streamlined. Plus, it is somewhat feature rich when it comes to some of the basic things it offers, although in simple terms, although in many ways it is a simple platform, it is very feature rich. So let's look at the wellness side. Now, looking at the wellness things on the watch, the simple things that you would use for wellness on the watch is just going to be the sleep, which you can see here, the total time, resting heart rate, as well as, it always seems to time out quickly, maybe that's why I'm getting good battery life, as well as your sleep score. So you get the summary of information, you can click in, you can see all the sleep stages, but your time in the sleep stages, and then if you took any naps, it's great that it follows naps. So this is probably a big one. You swipe out of it. Another sort of one that is offered is stress tracking. It actually is far less frequent during the day, so I don't find that this adds any value, because if it's not tracking you when you're really stressed during the day, then it's not really tracking your stress. You can set your alarms. But you can see even more information in the app when it comes to the overall wellness features. You get some wellness in here, just sort of, there's your pulse ox, so you can actually click into any of those little stripe down things. You can see your pulse ox across the period of the day, as well as it gives pulse ox for your night's sleep. And let's look at the app to see the wellness in full. When it comes to wellness things, we're going to look at sleep last. That's probably the most in-depth version. When it comes to wellness features, you have your breathing quality, suspected breathing difficulty. I don't know. They're doing some cool things. They're elaborating. This is a beta thing, but they're trying to pick up on just how you're breathing. It looks like I had one cough or something like that from 8 to 8:42. But obviously stress is a big thing to track. But if you can see in the histogram up top, it's only tracking primarily while I'm sitting still or when I'm asleep. Now, I will say it is comparing in some of the scores it's giving that Garmin would also provide for the periods that it was tracking. Like if you look at midnight last night, I was just watching a movie. It actually is not far off from what Garmin was tracking, and then it was similar from when I was sleeping. It just doesn't do it during the day, and that's the primary time you actually need to track your stress. So to me, it doesn't offer a lot of value, although it's a cool concept. They just need to be able to track while you're moving around. And then the pulse ox, is looking for this all the time. It's a valuable piece. Think about all the watches and the reviews you might have seen that blood oxygen tracking will burn your battery to the ground. I've never turned this off. It's on all the time, and I am getting full spectrum battery life. Now, it's not picking it up every time, but you can sort of scan across time, especially during your sleep, to see what your pulse ox is for the period of time that you're asleep, for each little hour snapshot. And I think that's what this is like 6, 5, 4. But, it's not killing the battery, and it is tracking. There aren't many other significant features, although I think there is in the apps itself, you can do menstrual cycle tracking. So let's look at the overall sleep tracking. So sleep tracking, it gives you a score, which is a summary, and you can click on any of these things. It's going to tell you what the score was based on and what your history of scores have been. it does tend to overestimate score value. So I got 6.5 hours. That's okay, but it's giving me an 81. I got 5 hours and 45 minutes of sleep last night. It gave me a 79. That to me is not a good sleep score. It reminds me a lot of Fitbit. There would be a lot of times when some of my stats were what Fitbit might consider to be balanced, and so it would give me a good score, and I was way malnourished on the sleep and recovery side. So you get your sleep stages. You know, you can expand all these things if you wanted to be able to see your sleep stages, your breathing, as well as your heart rate during that time. But the biggest thing is how is it tracking compared to a more accurate tracker or one that's been studied to be more accurate. So the deep is actually coming in very close to some of the Whoop score, the Whoop time accumulated in deep sleeping. REM is coming in second closest, although there's more variance with REM sleep, but REM is also harder to track. And then the awake time is coming in much more minimally. So it's categorizing a lot of the awake time as light sleeping time, whereas Whoop breaks that down better. But one thing that is great when it comes to breathing rate is that this is actually, my average last night was 14. You can see wherever you were at different points in time. And this was the same breathing rate I had on the Whoop. And you can see in the last 7 days, I bumped up to 14 from an average of 13. And that's actually what Whoop told me as well. So here you have a $200 watch that is beautiful and does a lot of things well, that's actually tracking at least in the same vein or the same trend. My heart rate, my resting heart rate of 62 beats per minute. I can't remember if that's the average of my heart rate. And we'll see how it compares to what is saying my resting heart rate is 60 beats per minute. So I don't know why here on this resting heart rate, why it's not giving me my resting heart rate from the sleep section. You have to go into the heart rate section to see that. But either way, these are the pieces you get. So I've really found the breathing rate and the resting heart rate, not on the screen, but the resting heart rate on the heart rate screen to be a good physiological metric, as well as I think it is nailing the start and end times. It really gets those right, and I don't know that there's much value in the score. So that's the broad set of wellness features on the app. Really, I would say in general, I would give this sort of like a C, like an average rating, but there are some feature benefits that are a little bit worthwhile, like the breathing rate, because not everybody is looking at that, and this is a worthwhile metric, plus the accuracy of when you go to sleep, when you wake up. So let's talk about everything. Now, what are the standout features on the wellness side? I actually, obviously there's a lot of debate over who's got the accuracy when it comes to sleep stage tracking, and if you compare it to the Whoop and their sleep stages, the stages aren't quite lining up. So the deep sleep is going to has been consistently within plus or minus 15 minutes, and the REM sleep has been plus or minus 30% depending on, but it is spot on with falling asleep, spot on with waking up. That is actually not something that everybody gets right. I do love that it includes a breathing rate. I'm seeing the similar breathing rate scores as I do on the Whoop. So when I have an elevated breathing rate, both devices are telling me it's elevated. The resting heart rate is actually a worthwhile metric to track, and the resting heart rate has been the same as it elevates or declines. It's actually been 2 points off, but still it's been the same sort of variance across time. So I don't value the sleep score as much because it's obviously not tracking excellent scores relative to what I feel like was excellent sleep. But the fact that it has pulse ox, that seems to be really like the breathing rate, the resting heart rate, the fact that it's getting the sleep time correct, and that it's giving you some sort of value based on the quantity of time you spent in different sleep stages. So it's got a score type system, even though I feel like it falls short at certain points. So let's look at the workouts and the training aspects and then talk about it. All right, so when it comes to workouts, there's a few really key pieces with this. Number one, there are 14,000 sport profiles, all the way down to chess and checkers, as if you'd want to track that on your watch. So you have all these basic ones that are just auto built in there. I added a couple, and then you go into different areas of workouts. So there's 154, all sorts of random ones, plus all the common ones. It has 8 sport profiles it'll automatically track. So 8 sport profiles that'll be like, okay, we see that you're doing an elliptical, we see that you're walking, you're running, you're biking, we see that you're swimming, and we see that you are doing indoor rowing. So you know, all the basics there. And then when you go into a workout, it's going to look very much like simple metrics. So nothing you're going to be blown away with. It talks to you if you want it to. So you can see just basic workout screens. You can adjust some of these things, although I have not played with that at all, so I'm not the expert on that. And then it gives you the summary of stats after. So in your workout history, you can track through all the details. So this is what it looks like when you get done with the workout. You see your training effect, your aerobic, and your anaerobic. Now this is actually a pretty big deal. You get a load score, which is the EPOC, excess post-oxygen consumption, like how hard the workout hit your body, so how much oxygen you take in to recover. Your aerobic training effects, so the impact of the workout on your aerobic increased strength, as well as the anaerobic. And then you have the summary of information. You just get the full stats, so you can see all this stuff on the watch when you get done, your time in the zones, your heart rate graph, and you will get your recovery time, which is also combined in probably one of the other primary features of this watch relative to watches that exist, is that you have a training load over time. Your last 7 days, this is the accumulation of those EPOC scores from each of the workouts, and you can see where you stand on a spectrum, and we'll look at a second and see where you stand on the app itself. Your VO2 max score, as well as how much recovery time. Now, it has been tracking. I haven't been working out as rigorously because of the injury followed by COVID. So I haven't been working out like hard every single day. I've been more trying to go hard every other day. And so it's actually tracking very similarly to what Garmin might track as far as my recovery time. But when I am working out hard every day, my training load does get overestimated, so it goes up into the red too quickly, as well as my recovery time gets a little overestimated. Instead of saying 25 hours, it'll say 42 hours. So an overestimate of recovery time if you're going back to back to back. So that's something that hopefully they will update over time. Now the sensor, we're going to look first at the heart rate graphs compared chest strap versus the Amazfit heart rate tracking on its own. And you can sort of see, I'm not doing a full analytical because I don't know of a way to export the data, but I would say it's in the 85 to 90% accuracy range, maybe even a little bit better. But the one thing I will say about the sensor accuracy is that it is fully keeping up with rapid changes in heart rate, which is a hard thing for a heart rate sensor to do. I did some hard workouts where it was in EMOM, and I was going about 30 seconds hard and 30 seconds completely resting. So my heart rate was fluctuating quickly and significantly, especially because I was doing the workout while having COVID, so my heart rate reacted more rapidly. So it kept up with the flow of the workout for the most part across all the workouts that I did, which is actually, to me, the most important thing about it. So let's look at all the details we can see about training on the app itself. All right, so here you have the chest strap, and then you have the Amazfit GTR4. Now it's not perfect. It obviously overspiked in certain parts, but overall the flow of the workout is roughly the same. If you look, and we're not going to take a ton of time, but if you look, the hills and the peaks are basically the same trend line. Same thing here. This is the chest strap, the Polar H10. If you look at the picture, you can see it visually, and then it looks like a similar picture on the GTR4. Now this was a lot of wrist flexion. This was a lot of all sorts of movements across the wrist, like thrusters and kettlebell swings and overhead presses, as well as front squats, all sorts of things. So then here's another longer workout with some lighter EMOM in the beginning, with some more heavy intensity intervals or rounds in the middle, and then some more extended workouts. So you can see it very similar. So the peak is going a little bit higher than the peak on the chest strap, but very similar path. So across all these, I really feel like it is absolutely picking up the flow of the workout, and more importantly, the rapid change in heart rate. Although I still think this might be just 85% accurate if I was going to estimate it based on looks. Some are even more like this, more accurate, that look more accurate, and then a little bit in the middle with the same general flow at certain parts, but not picking up every single part perfectly. So if you look at what it looks like when you go to review or analyze your workouts. This was like 10 seconds. So we're going to go into all our history here. And, you know, if you look at across time at a maybe more of a real workout, so this slight time in zone 5, bulk of the time in zone 4, and you can see that it's giving you the aerobic training effect and the anaerobic training effect. Now, if you look at that, that is a very over-skewed towards the anaerobic. So I feel like the aerobic training effect was actually across multiple workouts very similar to the output Garmin was giving me. So that makes it a worthwhile factor from a highly reputable or at least deeply researched company's aerobic effect. So similar, as trustworthy on the aerobic effect, but not as worthwhile on the anaerobic effect. So this really doesn't have enough time out of the 58 minutes, you know, to really justify that much anaerobic impact. Same thing on a similar workout. So this has a little bit more time accumulated in zone 5 and then a bulk of the time in zone 4. And it's just over maxing out my anaerobic, as well as if you spend too much time in zone 4 and zone 5, it's going to tend to max out both categories training effect, aerobic and anaerobic, which is not really trustworthy, you know, because that's, I wasn't killing myself. This is what a workout looks like if you did a short pathetic run, all the features you would get. You know, this is just sort of basic cadence, stride, the overall training effect, the details if you are into running, and this is what it would look like. Everything was tracked fine with GPS, but it didn't track the accuracy extensively. And then if you were to look at a strength training workout, this was just a very brief workout, that just a simple test that I did, and you can see the same heart rate data, but you get to see the muscles used. And in the bottom, you can see the set details. So I did the motion of a bicep curls, and I did 6, and it counted 6. A shoulder press, I did 10, it counted 11. Overhead tricep extensions, I did 8, and it counted 8. Bench press, 8, and it counted 8. So everything had to be adjusted once I got in here. So it estimated most of my movement types, and so I just had to change the movement type to the appropriate one. But it has a heat map for strength training. I mean, that is super, super impressive. And then you go into the training load over time. So you can track back and forth, so you can see your load over a period of days. And that's sort of the summary of what you can see. You actually get a little bit more detailed information on the watch because you can see your recovery time. But one of the things that's really interesting about what they're developing here at Amazfit is you get strength training with a heat map, and it's a relatively accurate rep count amongst those that I've tested. In the running features, you actually get track run, which is a new feature for Apple and relatively new in the last 12 to 18 months feature for Garmin and for Coros to be able to zone in, hone in on the track. But you can also do interval tracking straight off the watch. It has back to start if you're on a hike, as well as back. Not only would it take you back across the path you actually have walked, but you can do a shortest distance, and then later on they're going to allow you to download routes to be able to fully track a course off of your watch through a downloaded route into the watch itself. That's not available now, but it's coming. So from a feature standpoint, when it comes to workouts and training, I feel like it has the backbone of all the basics, and it does a good job at all the basics for the most part. And it even has some real specialty features like strength training, track run, interval training, back to start, as well as the fact you can connect to a chest strap, and then it has multi-band, dual band GPS. Now, this is a simple watch, but there is a ton to talk about on the more significant features and benefits on the workout side. So the fact that it has strength training, it'll track your reps, whether it gets the activity right, whether it gets the number of reps exactly right, nobody does. The fact that it counts it, and then you can adjust in the app, and you can see a sleep, you can see a heat map of what muscles you worked. The fact that it has track run, that it'll try to hone in on the track, is a feature that has not yet even come to the Apple Watch Ultra. The fact that you can do intervals, that it auto recognizes more than just running and walking. The fact that it now connects to a chest strap, which obviously is industry standard in a lot of ways, but for an inexpensive, long battery life, beautiful 1.4-inch screen AMOLED watch, the fact that it connects to a chest strap as well is actually a significant jump. The fact that they're going to add routes, so you can add the downloadable routes to the watch and follow a route, and then it already has back to start and shortest distance back to start, and the new heart rate sensor is actually pretty on point for such an affordable watch. So lots and lots of good features on the strength and training. So what do I think in summary? Now, in summary, I feel like Amazfit is legitimately here to compete in this market. I mean, you have an excellent solution at $200 of a pretty awesome and awesome looking watch. So let's talk about the negatives and then we'll focus on the positives. The cons, the training load and the recovery time can sometimes be overestimated, especially if you're doing CrossFit and you're keeping your heart rate at elevator rates. Can be overestimated on how much load you accumulated as well as how much recovery time you need. The aerobic and the anaerobic scores seem skewed towards anaerobic, again, because typically in CrossFit high intensity interval training, which is what I test primarily, you're overweighting your zone 4, zone 5. The stress definitely doesn't seem worthwhile because it can't track stress during the day, and that's when you know that's when you need to know when you're stressed. The chest strap is an awesome addition, and honestly, there's not much to complain about. But if you go out of chest strap signal, the watch can't pick it back up. It's a little bit simple. Obviously, there's a simple set of apps. There's a simple set of like how everything works, and it's tempered glass on the screen. So those are the short list, and I don't think those are significant cons enough to make you look away from the Amazfit GTR4. Because think about the pros. Again, I'm going to say it. It's a $200 watch with a 1.4-inch AMOLED screen, giving, for me, heavy use, always on display, 8.5 days of battery life, that offers dual band GPS, has Alexa built in, a speaker and a microphone, has been perfectly flawless with receiving notifications. All the apps, everything has worked perfectly, that will give you your training load, estimated recovery time recommendations, not just based on how much time you worked out that week, but how hard and intense the workout was. It can connect to a chest strap so you can know that the heart rate is purely accurate. It has the basics of wellness that you would need in today's world to be able to see if your breathing rate is changing, to track your resting heart rate changes over a course of a few nights, which is a good physiological metric. It is tracking the accurate period for your sleep and providing some feedback with what it thinks the quality of your sleep was. So all in all, this is a legitimate watch for the price. Now, if you can afford $350 or $450, I would definitely say look to the Garmin 255. I think this is one step below the Polar Pacer, not the Pacer Pro, but the Polar Pacer. That's $200 as well, but the Polar Pacer is going to offer a far less beautiful experience, even though the Polar Pacer is going to offer a more enhanced value when it comes to wellness analysis, your sleep analysis, as well as a better visual display of your training load over time. Outside of those things, this is a real deal watch that if you just like more of the full feature set of an excellent watch coupled with a good backbone of training and wellness specifics, it's gonna beat out the Polar Pacer. And it's obviously just a beautiful watch in just simple terms. So with that, that is the Amazfit GTR4 final review. It's the Fit Gear Hunter. Thanks so much for watching.